glad and so appreciative of you coming to this balanced methodology NDC partnership side event here. And a big thank you to Morrell for the hostess of the digital pavilion. I think this has become our spiritual home. So a massive warm appreciation to you, and thank you everybody for coming. Wonderful to meet you. So a big thank you for the tap and the invitation. It's a job on it. Okay, let's get going.
Well, everybody, great to see you. As Dan said, it's a hot day. Welcome to Brazil. And we're really looking forward to getting this is going to be a very interactive conversation. So it's not just people telling your stories. We want to hear you and share with you. So let me start by introducing Dan, my good friend Dan. He's the founder and the CEO of Balance. And the idea, as you see, is three pillars, right? Biodiversity, sustainable communities, and climate action. The three items of the Holy Grail. All the reason that we are here in Berlin together to work it out. So it's great to have Dan. Dan has some moonshot ideas, which I think are very interesting. And so just quickly, he's the founder and CEO of Balance. He co-coined the term balance and carbon neutral, kind of cool. He has a very distinguished career advising academic collaborations, working with 250 global companies. And he's also an artist. And just across the road, there's a bunch of artists, and they were saying that, you know, real change will only come when science and art go hand in hand. And here you have them hand in hand in the person of Dan. So please, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's very helpful. Also, I've advised Dan to advise IOSIS on taking mitigation, and I have a paper published by the Archives in public rights. I've been around the area for 30 years. It's the first time inaugurated. It's called the open shop by Morrell and the pet shop is the first ever carbon assessment, and that's the first time I've traded estuary, water enhancement fishery, sustainable fibre production, permaculture, agroforestry, ecotourism, agritourism, we've got a place that's got biodiversity hotspots, from people who are earning money from it, it's a nice place to ecotourism and agritourism. Another thing that is regenerative agriculture, an income stream to local people. And then the second pillar of that human rights, social economics, is biochar. I think many people will be familiar with biochar, but at CCA, it's carbon capture and storage that works, and it costs nothing to do a hole in the ground or a recycled oil drum or a no-cost kiln, and you can put heat on it and use that for cooling or all sorts of stuff that you can do with biochar. So they get to use it and sell it, and we take the biochar credit, carbon, and it's a bit like catnip for Silicon Valley companies that can sell it all day long. We pay $200 a ton for it. So that's another long-term income stream. The carbon money, all the money from permaculture, agroforestry, all those sorts of pieces, and the biochar. So that's a social economic. The next thing we do is we report. So our clients, they get a biodiversity and a social economic report every year. So they see how many swans, foxes, and orchids and fishes going, and they can show that to the stakeholders, and also how much money is coming into the communities. So it becomes real. So it's not like an offset. I think the joy of balance rather than the guilt of offset. This is very key. And so our clients are showing what's going on in the project to their stakeholders, but they're also saying that they're balanced. What they're not saying is they've offset their carbon, therefore their footprint is gone. What they're saying is that they've created biodiversity with social economic well-being. Oh, and there's a welcome co-benefit of carbon. Now, what's really important about that is because it's a carbon credit that's being upgraded into a balanced unit, it's interoperable with the retirement system at S&P Global. So the FD of a big corporate can still see his carbon credits retired on the exchange. And that's also a very important part because of the efficacy of the reporting. But the last two things of the contract are very boring, but very, very important. One is additionality. We drill down and make sure we make up accounting. My background is up to 200 million tons since I got going in 1988. I've got businesses, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's a hell of a lot of bad and ugly out there. So we really, really drill down on additionality, making sure there's no conflicts in double counting. And then the last one is force majeure. So firefighting and disease protection, obviously, the product developer in those cases is obligated to recreate. We also have a buffer stock. But for 3% of the cost of the balanced unit, we have a relationship with Howden Insurance, and you can take it out of W&I, not just against the carbon and the biodiversity, so the whole thing. This can be helpful. So that's half the balance unit. It's sorry to go on. I'm going to ask you some questions. I apologize for you to be too complicated or too long, but it's very simple now. Here we come on to the reputation of SAFE. So the open source methodology means that activists and people seeing other accusations of greenwash are very much involved in this. So they feel they've got ownership. The wisdom of the indigenous communities in, so we're paying them for their time, just like we do a consultant for their time. So we have got to a place where we've got a reputation of safety, and it's CMO, Chief Marketing Officer ready, which means that we're able to scale that rather tiny $2 billion market that took 30 years to occur. Now, to put that in perspective, that's 5 times smaller than the very, very small global nail clipper market. And we have an exit safety crisis. So we cannot resolve it by restoring the carbon market. What we need to do is 100 to 1,000 next. The only way we could do that is have reputation safety and have CMO ready. So now on to the last bit, which is the campaign work, and that's fun. So every unit of balance we create, we marry the planting 63 in country near their customers and their businesses. After we've been paid, got people in time or final charge reporters, the subsequent year, the client can take its customers out and go ready to new from Palo Alto into San Francisco, plant trees with people, send it the antidote for anxiety. So you get people out, planting trees, and they can remember that their children 5-10 years later, there's that visible icon, and they go online and check. So that builds a movement. We have no intention of being a brand, this is a movement. And one by one, time by time, plant the protect efficiency, reduction, balance. And here we go.
Okay. Speaking as a restoration person myself, just before we go any further, the challenge down on that. Why one tree? Why not 100 trees?
Well, because within the cost of the balance unit, there are massive amounts of trees planted that are already distant. And the one tree planted was an icon, and that has a very cost attached. If we did 100 trees, the cost of the unit would be thousands and thousands.
Thank you, that's very good explanation. So then you've been in Berlin for a couple of days. We're all here. This is the micro-COP. This is the COP of the Global South, which is very exciting. Not only the painting of the Global South, but and how balance is going to help us get there.
Okay, really is confused. It's myopic. We're focusing on carbon. So we're not taking the free approach, combining the economies of scale. I think that's what we need to do. That's the solution. And then the vision, which is kind of the talk, this is NDC, National Return Contribution. So now we get to the rub of why we're here. Okay, so for the moment, the project developer is in Honduras, it's an indigenous community. In Scotland, it's landowners, stakeholders, and where there's a two pilot projects. Where we're moving to is within NDC, because we're interoperable with the carbon credit system and we're a methodology standard, the NDC commitment still work through. So we're in conversation now, and Ollie and I have been at it for about 32 months. So 32 months, and what it is to get sovereign countries to come on board with supplies of balance units. So they can create carbon credits within their existing system, but they can become hypothecated for biodiversity and socio-economic. And then we have a demand for those to the big buyers because they've given up on carbon credit purchase and they want to buy a biodiversity unit, socially economic and economic combo. So we have the finance. So what does this do for a country? Well, it's jiu-jitsu on carbon credit really needs, and it's also a new mechanism of natural resources. But just imagine this: a country has got a new natural asset on their balance sheets. Now, this is huge because they can borrow money against it. They can also, a lot of countries can't borrow money, so global south is a beneficiary. The other thing about this is if you can get reduced interest rates on other borrowing, if you've got a it's almost like discovering a resource similar in size to the one that. And what's really exciting about this is that the only way natural resource extraction has got a terrible history of exploitation. But the only way to get this natural resource out of place the economics of fossil fuels with the economics of restoration.
Instead of biodiversity, that is actually the carbon and we're looking at social biodiversity livelihoods.
So there's a lot of popular housing finance scheme, which I have been attacked by in the late 90s, early 90s. And I got the story today with the tears on the fact that equity can shape the point there is that reputational safety for big corps to go forward is the most important thing. If they're not claiming offset, that's how that works. And if they're claiming biodiversity creation, social economics will come on it. So there are three pillars that we go biodiversity first, human rights, social economics second, third, and we kind of put it as a co-benefit, like a poor cousin, because of the reputational damage that all the carbon markets have done to if you wanted to sell carbon offset or carbon neutral to CMOs, chief marketing officers of big corporations, and then we're in a football stadium full of them, right? You have one box full of the insane ones, that would be your target market. I mean, so that's how difficult it is to sell carbon neutral offset outside of CSR or compliance. It's just a bustard platform. We said, forget it. Balance is the way forward.
Okay, so we're talking about how countries can have lockdowns. Can I just take it down to a smaller level? What about a small or medium-sized enterprise? What is balance going to do for them?
Okay, well, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. Because you said the world economy is big, and they do assess they have their knowledge of the carbon footprint, so relatively them to purchase balance units. SMEs, the other 50% of the world's economy, which is 90% of the world's staff employment, 1% of that has anything about the environment. It's a huge global improvement in that area. First thing is they do not trust carbon credits. And they've read The Guardian, and they don't have INSEAD trained analysts like Morrell or Google or Netflix. So they don't understand the complexities. They just gut reaction never apply. So the balance unit, as opposed to carbon credit, resolves that issue. That's tick box number one. Why would they do it? The second issue for SMEs is assessment. The carbon footprint assessment to be assessed is expensive, it's intrusive, it's time consuming, and it's annoying. And in my old business, I used to get 30% churn out because people didn't want to be assessed. And it's even worse now because they didn't trust the product at the end. So I spent tens of thousands, okay, so now I believe in it, and now I want to see it. Now I want to have an assessment. So we have balance to sector, which is on our website, and we've got ROW, rest of the world rollout. We know the CO2 footprint of every single industrial sector, and we also know the turnover. So what happens at the moment? We've got it going in the UK, but as I say, rest of the world rollout very soon coming. All of that somebody needs to do is input its company registration number, and it has a SIM code, so it doesn't even need to know it's sector. We find that for them with our algorithm. Then you warrant your turnover, and then it gives you a footprint of how much you within your sector are responsible for on average. But we really drop down to 2 questions. It takes it from a 3-second process to 5. Well, I can't myself. Sorry guys, I'm back. 3 seconds to 5. We ask, have you got a renewable energy tariff or do you have an electric car fee? That's the only thing we do. So that gives you a balanced sector assessment. And the brilliant thing about this is it only accounts for scope 1 and 2 only in country, not scope 3. The most hammering and complicated of the lot. So what's really nice about that is if you want your scope 3, your products to be balanced in store, what you need to do is ask your procurement to purchase from a balanced supply chain. Boom, 1 by 1, 10 by 10. That means our clients become our sales force, and therefore we're able to go viral with this offer back down supply chains.
Does that extend to individuals? One person who is passionate to offer
balance their car. Well, balance offset actually, combination offset. I'm going to go more into some stinging methods. Come up with that. Anyway, Yes, it does include, it does extend to consumers. But you got to, we can't run before you walk. We're doing big corp first, SME second, and then we're going consumer third. But we've got it ready. What we've done, before we go to that, the science behind the balanced sector calculations, the data is peer reviewed as being 98.7% accurate in all instances for government data. So that's very helpful. Okay, we have a third paper that's in a further peer review, which is deep science on the average CO2 footprint per person per income bracket. So all you need to do on our calculator is, rather than go and gather data as an individual, you just say what income bracket. We don't want to know how much money you earn. We just say what income bracket you're in, and then you can be a balanced individual. Or if you want to be a balanced household, it's what's your dual income bracket and how many dependents. And we also ask about renewable energy tariff and electric car, and that will give you a footprint. So yes, those are our three efforts that we've got up and running: balance assessment, balance the sector, and balance my life.
We all want to balance our lives, right? That's our idea. Good. So, are you going up against the extractive industries?
We're kind of jujitsu on extraction, because I think, as I said, we've discovered a new natural resource that we're extracting, and the only way you can extract it is to put biodiversity, social economics with climate benefit. So, are we going? I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to balance BP or Shell. I mean, Shell's carbon neutral fuel offers as extremely destructive and giving false hope to people. BP, well, British Petroleum, Beyond Petroleum. I was actually quite close to this at the time. I was an advisor at Downing Street on an advisory group, and BP actually joined the group, which was bizarre. But anyway, I created, I think, one of the first ever carbon calculators back in 98. And that was a footprinting calculator. BP copied that, and then they very much used that for public affairs, saying that carbon footprinting should be put on the individual. It's almost like William Morrell say, smoking cancer should be put on the people who use our product. So it was used for public. It was used for look at how many people get incredibly stressed out about their tiny little carbon footprint. Yet they work for, there's 80 companies in the world that create 75% of the emissions. So and people go and work for those businesses without. So it's an obfuscation. So are we going up against that? I mean, from a philosophical point of view, we have the knowledge, and we'll be right that we use a cold face. We extracting industries are very, very naughty.
So, Dan, what would you say are the barriers to acceptance of this very exciting new idea?
Well, the barriers to acceptance is markets thinking that carbon credits, that's it, and a lack of understanding that they can be evolved into something that does something brand new and very exciting. So yes, we've had a bit of inertia from some of the markets. I've had serious pushback on the radiator forcing cycle, 100 years from some markets people, because it really does mess up what they're doing. It's iconoclastic in actual fact, because it means the whole system doesn't work. But this is the really exciting thing about that, is that our science on that is peer reviewed anonymously. So Professor Peter Cox at Exeter, one of the top IPCC lawyers, is the author of the section within our paper that deals with radiator forcing cycles. But then that's the citation, but then you've got it took us 26 months to go through peer review. And then what happens is you've got all the academic community with the sort of referring, and then a consensus document comes out. So if the markets went to argue with balance about the 100-year radiator forcing cycle, it's not me they need to talk to. It's the global scientific community. So we have, and that was part of the reason for doing so much housework before we came out, because you can't say something like your whole system doesn't work unless you can prove it, and we have proved it.
So you're going to be replacing your system. Are you breaking the old system, or are you adapting it, or loving it into something better?
We are assets because we're a methodology, not a standard. So we lift the existing standards into our methodology, and then we've created a market for them. So people won't want to buy the old carbon credits. And also with the market that just dropped by 62%, and there's countries out there who are getting carbon projects ready, thinking they're going to get carbon money in, and it's like there'll be money in those carbon areas, and it never arrives, or it's way too low. So we can get a premium, we can drive up the price, and we've got excited customers that are going, well, this is part of our marketing strategy, and we're proud of what we're doing. Where's that going to go? It goes massive. It goes 100 to 1,000x on the 2 billion when we're really working. So that does have an effect on the existing. And of course, existing carbon credits can be sold for compliance and at $2-3 a ton if somebody wants to, say they bought something and whatever. But fascinatingly, we don't touch avoidance because the avoidance credits, indigenous communities were cleared off the land because they were lighting fires even 9-10 months ago. It's even happening right now. And also, there's also land use issues about whether it was going to get felled or logged anyway. So we really do need to protect forests. So let us deal with the removal section. So Ollie and I have done again about 28-30 months of procurement and searching for carbon credits that happen to be able to exist and go through our methodology is like looking for working horse poo. I mean, really hard work. But we found it. We found, I think we've got 5 million tons on our books, which is enough for us to service a £250 million turnover over the next couple of years. So we're there in terms of finding the stock. But what do we want to do with this? We want to go ex ante, whereby we pay people 25% of the money up front to create the project to our methodology, and then 75% down the line. We can do that 2 ways. One, we can do that privately funded, and or we can do it client funded. And because the clients aren't claiming a carbon offset, they're not necessarily needing to buy a carbon credit. And it's voluntary. So if they're seeing their pro-social activities, creating jobs, spreading biodiversity, and then a few years down the line it develops a credit, but Howard Insurance are in there with a WI insurance system that it can be go somewhere else, then their compliance and their due diligence people are going to be very happy with the whole structure. So yeah, we're in a really good place for that. Yeah.
So you're talking about carbon capture for reforestry and wild and on a large scale, right?
Well, yeah, okay, so the moonshot. You want to have the moonshot? This is interesting. People get into real trouble if they exaggerate. Any hyperbole around this. So I'll try and be as concise as possible. There's a land mass the size of North America globally that could be rewilded to our methodology. And if that was done on the way to 2050, what would that equate to? At 48 gigaton, that would be 20% of the issue. So that's that would be a moonshot.
So if I'm working in a restoration program and I'm planting 1 million trees on lots and lots of small properties, how do we organize the monitoring to make sure that we are compliant on the large scale with lots and lots of stakeholders?
Well, that's very difficult with carbon projects because it's expensive. I mean, you can go to other cities that we're partnered with here who've got a fantastic downstream digitization process. So you're a farmer or a landowner can go in and look and see, should I do a Vera or Plan Vivo or Woodlands Carbon Code or whatever. So you can get advice through technology platforms which we're developing. Yeah.
So what would you like to see happen at COP in terms of adopting balance as an asset?
Our ambition is to get 1 or 2 countries to come up with NDC, but we don't need. We just want to have an MOU, and then we can go to press with that soon, and then we'll get the intersessional report, and then by COP 21, we would like to be sure with a bunch of countries actually adopting a balanced methodology. That would be our absolute goal. That's what we're here for.
And do you already have countries that like to
Contract level with Mongolia and Bhutan. We talked about the contract and where we're at. But we've got 7 women, and not even that yet. Some diplomacy is harder than corporate selling. It's really tough. But we're very determined, so we need it.
Do you have your eye on any particular country as your first target post?
Yeah, we totally find contract. Great relations with Benji Georgie is one of my great friends. Is the ex-environmentalist of Bhutan, staying in Bhutan, so yeah, Bhutan is a good first start. And then Mongolia, also on Morrell, we've got great relationships with Morrell. We're doing a lot of urban regeneration. We found methodologies where we can look at how to create permaculture and agroforestry within an urban regenerative system. So they're being really innovative. And then who else are we? Anyway, yes, there's a lot going on.
Are you in discussions with Brazil? Tell me more.
Yes, we are discussing with Brazil, but not here in Brazil. And they're really cool facts, but they don't make sense.
Then can you give us a case study or two about
Well, yes, this is very important because our methodology is based on historic. It's a case study, the actual carbon sequestration, the altitude and temperature, hectare species mix, and it's based on the Forest of Marston Vale, which is near Milton Keynes, just outside London. So that's where the tonnage, that's what the Woodlands Carbon Code is based upon. And so that's how they came. And Woodlands Carbon Code was one of the best areas, the UK Woodlands Carbon Code. So that was the basis of the methodology that started the whole system. And I've got James Russell, the forest director, and the backers and the Brits went off neutral back in the late 90s, and that's where they went. So I have a very long so that was the first methodology in the case study that developed the Woodlands Carbon Code, is where our first parenting is the Ninja Tune. And that's what that is. So that was the first and then we've got 7 other projects. One is we've got Vicky West, who's the chair of the Women's Carbon Code, myself and Dr. Richard Tupper, who's Edinburgh Central Carbon Manager. He's a Nobel Prize winning planet scientist. But he developed the first tonnage of carbon sequestration and this carbon code is based on my old future forest methodology working with Richard. So there's a long pedigree to see that. So that was after ago is where it was established as a code. And then it's been commuted around the UK and in Scotland, and we've got 7 Woodlands Carbon Code projects that are working with PIU, which is a provisional carbon unit. Well, that's very interesting because it's post 3 to 5 years of planting, but it's going to take 30 to 50 years before it's sequestered the carbon. So under UK law, anybody who buys a PIU cannot say that they're carbon neutral or for 35 to 50 years. So as far as marketing your climate impact, it's about as useful as an aspirin motorcycle.
And what question did we not ask you?
I wish we could ask the audience if they would say ask the questions. Anybody want to ask a question? Any questions? Yes, yes.
My name is Jason. I work with Platinum Purpose, and we're in conversation with you all about doing a different people. So we're really excited. So my question is so it sounds like what you're talking about is this is the alternative to methodology identification. This would be an alternative, essentially verification process as opposed to the zero wholesale. This would be layered on top.
Yeah, the answer is it's not instead of, it's in partnership with, although we have no relationships with the standards. We're interoperable. So what happens? It's a layer on top. So the verification of carbon comes from Panvivo or Standard, ERA, and that generates the credit. We purchase those credits from a product developer who has adhered to over and above the 6-point methodology.
I just and then the second question was what would look like a single price for carbon or carbon tax methodology. I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Working Wire and their work in Sweden. We're also kind of explore how is this similar to the
Well, we've hacked the carbon market, and we've thrown away everything that doesn't work, and we've kept the only group that does, which is we're getting money from project developers. That's it. So in the personal, we put the money on the carbon because it's a way of getting financial, it's a way of measuring an impact. And here's something really positive I can do. But we're not an offset. We're not saying we're offsetting. Nobody, as a private individual who flies, is going to say, on a flight calculator, oh, I've offset my emissions. That's the difference, even though it does.
Thank you so much. My name is Veda. I'm representing RAD. RAD is the Arab Network for Environmental Development. It's a network of NGOs and the Arab region. Thank you so much for this interesting session. I was just asking about, the civil society. Because you mentioned SMEs and the cooperatives and so on. But however, many NGOs, many civil society organizations, they have a lot of projects on the ground, and they need to know more about this part of the market, and they lack the knowledge, they lack the experience, and so can balance provide this technical experience. Thank you.
Note that we're in the digital phase. So the answer is, in practice, yes, absolutely. And there's a particle zoom of 16 or so different carbon credit standards of what's available, and it's a very complicated area, which is and so fortunately, this is a bit of really, really good news. Many of the standards are coming up with APIs. And that will happen over the coming years. Those APIs will plug into the downstream digitalization process, so you'd be able to put a developer organized so that facility will be available through our website within 18 to 24 months. However, the myopic nature of this is the biggest problem we've got with climate, is to deal with offset and think that that's the carbon of the approach. If you do this without social economics and without biodiversity creation, you're going to get, it's really probably just doesn't work. So on this API plugin from standards, we are augmenting the social economic and biodiversity creation monitoring into that digitized downstream process, which inevitably will mean that will help us with our clients report. And so yeah, the modern world, we're going through the digitization of these processes to help with that.
climate change secretary. You mentioned we have submitted our ABC 3.0 last September.
I remember it well. How are you?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So then, my question is that we have to start from the NDCs. I mean, we should have the NDCs which enables this type of balanced approach to be mobilized in the country. So can you please explain a little bit on what type of NDCs should be there in our NDC report?
Well, the good news there is that the balance unit is interoperable within Article 6 of the Paris Accord framework. So what you don't have to do, and this will make it so much easier for us to work together, you don't have to go out and identify NDC aligned projects and then try and shoehorn in this other new methodology. That's not necessary. What we can do is together identify a project that you as a government have within your country, that then can get a carbon credit. That is interoperable with NDC, and then down the line, you can put that into your NDC pool. So you don't have to have done that first. And the wonderful thing is, if we do that, we agree to do that, even if it's a all legally binding MOU, then what happens is we've got climate leadership as we go to Bonn and COP31 showing that this is being adopted by countries. So I would love to talk to you about the simplicity of what we're doing afterwards. Thank you again. It's good to see you. Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we're kind of, and then a lot of these, I kind of close to wrapping up. I think the last thing to mention is energy. The energy sector is regarded as a commodity, yeah? And fixed commodity prices and resource extraction. Where are we going over the very 2 to 5 to 10 years, 5 years now with that? And this is really, really heartwarming. Energy is moving from a commodity to a technology. Technology is going to be quite expensive to start with, although renewables are cheaper than fossil fuels. Fossil fuels get their $5.8 trillion oil bunker fuel credit and externalities attached. So anyway, even without that, fossil fuels are renewables are coming in. But over the coming few years, energy moves to a technology. And what does that do? The prices tumble. And then first light energy, for example, in Oxford, with their nuclear fusion reactors coming on stream, say in five years' time, you've got this super abundant energy coming to the point where it's practically free, so it becomes a utility. That changes the world and also has a major impact on climate. So balances arena, but the partnership we want to work with is the energy evolution to technology. So we go in partnership with these technologies, and we are the biodiversity safety economic cleaning up solution for history en route. And I think with that vision, that's where we want to get to.
Dan, can I just ask you one last thing? I had mentioned that Dan is also a musician, right? So you have a space punk band, right?
Yes, I do.
Tell us how you communicate through that to sell this amazing idea.
Well, yeah, what is space punk? Oh, here we go. now really studying. Okay, so space punk, I said steampunk, they weren't steampunk back in the steam age. It took people a technical stage of about steam culture for that to happen. So we're going into space over the next decade, and in 10 decades in the future, people will get nostalgic about our technology now. So space punk is an inevitable journey that will happen. Okay, so punk rock is anybody can have a go, yeah? Space punk, without being elitist, is anybody who knows what they're doing can have a go. So this is an act. So what we're looking for is a global movement of an outbreak of common sense. So we've got a band called Chant Live, and we put microphones into the audience, and then we loop them into the show. So we play the audience as an instrument. And the tracks that are based on atmosphere, humanity, sustainability, water. People say how they feel about things, and they become an instrument. Now we have an app called Chant, CHANT-LIVE, it's in from the App Store, so you can download it. Chant Live, and you can load your voice into one of our tracks or a live show, the track back that you're mixed in, and then the revenue, the money you pay goes to plant trees, so you're singing trees to life. And we've oogly boogled that piece of, from a situationist space punk artist 10 decades in the future. We've oogly boogled that down now, so you can have a piece of the future on your phones. And how we know the future's going to be okay, if it wasn't, it wouldn't be artists to download from. So that's space punk.
Thank you so much. And any last thoughts, recommendations? Thank you all so much for coming on this hot day, and maybe we'll have a great talk. And let's go rooting for the let's get balance at country level, at corporation level, NGO level, individual level. So good job there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all very much for coming. So appreciated you listening and everything. Hello. Thank you. And I'm around to chat if anybody needs to chat. Thank you very much.